Hello and welcome to the first ever In Mallorca Magazine podcast. I'm Lucy Hawkins and this is our first guest, Maeve Bace. Hello.
Hi, Lucy.
I'm so excited about all of this. You and I have spoken often and at great length, so we will try to encapsulate it into 40 minutes with all of your incredible knowledge. You are a herbologist.
Yes, I'm an American herbalist now living...
Sorry, it's a herbalist rather than herbologist. Have I just made up a profession?
I think it's a Harry Potter thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I have been reading that.
Yes, so that makes sense. But
Okay.
yes, we're known as herbalists.
Herbalists,
practice
okay.
herbalism.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for having me.
What a pleasure.
It's an honor.
Indeed. So tell me how you started studying herbs.
It's kind of starts at the beginning. From as early as I can remember, I was always an outdoor person.
Right.
I was lucky enough to grow up on the edge of a forest preserve in New England,
Okay,
in the
beautiful.
northeast of the U.S., absolutely beautiful, and spent all of my time up in trees or building little fairy tea parties or exploring the rivers and creeks, and it was my happy place. I also spent my summers in Croatia because my father's Croatian, and he's the only one who immigrated to the United States. So my paternal half of my family lives there, where we spent our summers on the seaside, and my love for the sea was born. So there was a lot of earth in the childhood, from the
Yes.
forests of New England to the Adriatic part of the Mediterranean, of course,
Wonderful.
sea and that ecology. And then I was lucky to have parents who were both very dedicated to self-care and modeled self-care to me on the daily. My dad was supremely good at reclining in the evening, feet up, which is a position I find myself in often.
Yeah.
My mom was always modeling spending the time to take the oils after the bath and massage herself, to create the rosemary tea, hair rinse, etc. All of these things. I was also very lucky that my mom was way ahead of her time as far as nutrition goes.
Okay.
She had actually joined one of the first food co-ops in the United States. When my parents returned to the States, they had been living in Europe for many years. They returned in the 80s. And so she cooked a whole food from scratch diet from the beginning.
Right. This sounds like ideal parenting.
You know,
I mean, it's
in
kind
this
of
way,
the fashion right now, isn't it? We're trying to get back to that.
they were definitely ahead of the curve
Yeah,
and all of
brilliant.
these things. So I was modeled this kind of connection to earth and to nutrition, which is such a huge part of herbalism.
Okay.
And then it became time for me to get ready to go to university to study. And I ended up in New York City, of all places, which feels a little bit counterintuitive to everything I've just said. One of the main driving factors for me was I wanted to avoid bro culture, for lack of a better expression. I didn't want to be anywhere near a college campus or a sorority or fraternity. And so, of course, I turned to New York, where the city is your campus.
Yeah.
And I found this really great radical school called Eugene Lang College, where I majored in urban studies and spent those 4 years running around the city as my playground and learning about how people impact spaces and how spaces impact people, because it's a relationship there, very much like the relationship that we as people have with plants and the earth. We impact one another and we work in relationship.
Sure.
So I absolutely love that. And after college, I ended up at a nonprofit organization called Trees New York, which works to plant, preserve, and protect New York City's trees through education and community participation.
Okay.
I was
Because
there.
New York has a lot of trees.
Tons
right?
of trees.
Yeah.
You know, we so often think about it as this concrete jungle.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you look at Paris from above compared to New York. New York's the one that looks like a real jungle.
Right, okay.
You know, we have an incredibly beautiful, mature tree canopy.
So that was deliberate.
Parks.
That was planned.
Yes.
Okay.
All planned. And it's really wonderful, and you really feel it.
Right.
Just even in the number of birds that we have twittering around. So I did that for about a decade, absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
But then I got pregnant with my first child, Lee, and realized that I didn't want to return to the office full time with a 12-week-old.
Sure.
Here I was with my baby, and it was interesting. One of the first things that kind of pushed me down the herbal path more directly, or I should say, towards herb school, was that even though I grew up in New England, very cold winter, very extreme climates. You have the very cold winters, the very hot summers, and then the very vibrant transitions of spring and fall. Kind of the greatest expression of fall maybe in the world is in New England, in the United States. So even though I grew up in that environment, I really always hated winter. Right. I kind of spent my life enduring it.
Okay.
And then here I am. It's my first winter where I'm not in the office all day long. And I was out and about with my infant for many, many, many hours. I would just I don't like sitting at home with kids. So I'd kind of throw him in the stroller, bundle up, and be out sometimes 5, 6, 7 hours of the day. And I remember having this moment in February where I was like, wait, I haven't been hating this winter.
Right.
And I realized it was because I was participating in winter.
Okay, stop fighting it.
And I started being able to experience it versus, going into the office, kind of rushing with my coffee and leaving in the dark. Right?
Sure.
Changed everything. So that was a mental shift.
Okay.
And then as time went on, I realized, so I certainly don't want to return to the office, but I certainly do want to continue working with plants. And I have my second daughter, and I'm still pondering what's next. And I had both of my babies at home with a team of incredible midwives and doulas. And it was a hugely transformational experience for me. Wildly empowering to see what I'm capable of as a human animal.
Sure.
And so a lot of people in my life were encouraging me to get into either doula work or midwifery, but frankly, I'm squeamish.
Right. Okay.
So I thought, I see where they're coming from because I love caring for others and healing, and I love working with the plants. Also, I forgot to mention, I grew up dancing. Ballet and modern, very, 5 days a week. So a committed hobby. And then in my young adulthood, I became a committed yogi. I still practice yoga to this day. So I'm very much into embodying a physical practice.
Yeah.
So I started to think, I'm looking for something with plants. I'm looking for something that's physical, and I'm looking for something that helps others. But still circling around all these ideas. Is it massage therapy? Do I want to go into acupuncture, etc.? Nothing was landing. And then one day, my dear friend Maya, she lived in my neighborhood in Brooklyn at the time. She said, I'm leaving this book on your front porch that I think you'll really like. And it was a cookbook by a great herbalist called Brittany Nicholson Wood, called Time Herbal. And I sat down and I opened it up and I started reading it like a novel. Yeah. And I got through the introduction and realized, oh my God, I want to be an herbalist.
Right.
This is it.
Okay, that was the moment.
That was the moment. And I immediately went online and I found the only herb school in New York City, believe it or not. The city that has hundreds of thousands of everything has just one herb school, Arborvitae, School of Traditional Medicine. And I enrolled and I was accepted. And the second most important transformation of my life after having kids was going to herb school.
How incredible. So how old were the kids at this stage?
Time was 7 months old when I started. Okay. And Lee was 3.
Okay. And how long was the course?
3-year course.
Right.
So very, very intensive Professional Herbalism
Amazing.
Program.
Can you set the scene? I'm picturing like a brownstone in Brooklyn with this gathering of witch-like people around a big potion.
We were contending with COVID in the beginning,
Oh, wow.
which was hugely frustrating. So we had to do our in-person time masked at first,
Right.
which of course no herbalist wants.
No.
Lots of outdoor time, which we all love. And of course, utilizing modern technology for better or for worse. The good part about the whole Zoom component is we were able to connect with herbalists throughout the world.
Right.
Who wouldn't necessarily be able to pop into New York to do the guest classes.
Sure.
So I have been taught, the core faculty at Arborvitae is incredible, and they're all highly esteemed American herbalists.
Okay.
But if you can name an herbalist, they probably came in and did a guest class. So huge honor and privilege
What
to
an
be able.
education.
Yeah, incredible education.
Where does it start? Like, what was your first lesson?
Organoleptics, I would say, is where we start.
Okay,
so that is
understand.
using your senses
Yeah.
to begin to understand an herb.
Right.
So how does it look? Is the color vibrant? How does it feel? Is it dry? Is it moist? How does it taste?
Okay.
You know, is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it bitter? Is it salty? What might that tell us about what the herb does?
Right. So interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of the starting point. Then, of course, you need to learn all about botany and the actual phytoconstituents of the plant, what the plants.
And there are a lot of plants.
There are a lot of plants. So you have your materia medica.
Okay.
So that is your collection of medicinal plants used in every culture. So you have, many people are familiar with Ayurveda, which is ancient Indian herbal medicine. They have their Ayurvedic materia medica. Turmeric has become very popular throughout the world. That's an example of an Ayurvedic herb.
Right.
Then you have traditional Chinese medicine, which I think a lot of people know about, maybe via acupuncture. It's kind of like an inroad. They have their incredible materia medica. And then Western energetics, which is the materia medica of, I hate to say the West, because it's like West of what?
Sure.
And it just feels like a very kind of old,
Sure.
but maybe we can say European and of the Americas.
Yeah. Right.
Materia medica.
Okay. And is there a lot of crossover?
As far in the U.S. or between Americas and
Were
Europe,
the Ayurvedic method and the Chinese method, were they speaking the same kind of?
So TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, actually comes from Ayurveda.
Okay.
So Ayurveda is the original recorded herbalism that we know of. Now we have to remember, herbalism has been practiced from the beginning of recorded history all over the world.
Right.
But Ayurvedic practitioners immigrated up from the Indian subcontinent into China, where then over the next couple thousands of years, it was adapted for their environment and their culture. So it's actually one is spawned from the other.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely crossovers, because it's a philosophy.
Yeah.
So there's a temptation in our modern world to attempt to understand plants in the framework or context of modern medicine. So, for example, I hear, all the time, what can I take for my headache? I have high blood pressure. What can I do?
Yeah.
And I have to tell people we have to sit down and talk. And sometimes I can feel a level of resentment.
Right.
What the hell, as though I'm gatekeeping.
Because they want a quick fix.
And it's just not how plants work. It's
Okay.
not a this for that framework the way that it is with pharmaceuticals. It's really about relationship and being in relationship with plants, first all and foremost. And it's also about understanding the landscape in which we live and one's internal landscape, which, so above, as above, so below. This is herbalism. So just for example, to keep it simple, we talk about the elements, right? Let's just start with 4. There are 5 in TCM, so I'm in some of my lineage, but we have earth, fire, water, and air, right? So these are things that are hot, fire, very solid. Think of the air being very windy, etc. Water being wet. All of our interior landscapes also contain these 4 elements.
Okay.
So think of someone who might have a very boggy, slow, bogged down digestion. This is too much dampness.
Right.
Someone who's highly distracted, ADD, irritable. This is a sign of too much windiness.
Okay.
Someone who's prone to inflammation or who angers quickly. This is signs of too much heat in the body.
Right.
So herbalism is all about balance. We are never in perfect balance. Nothing on this earth is ever in perfect balance. But the goal is to stay balanced within a kind of a realm of balance, to not get too hot or too wet, right?
Sure.
Or too dry or too cold.
Uh-huh.
And everything works together in relationship internally, just like all of the elements do externally.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So it requires a deep studying of the earth and of our body systems.
Okay.
Of course, you need to understand in modern terms how the liver works, how the heart works, how our hormones work. This is important.
But you also need the whole picture.
You also need to be able to step back and think herbally what is happening. Another very important thing to note is that there's no separation between body, mind, spirit, and soul in herbalism.
Okay.
You treat holistically. So we use the whole plant to treat the whole person.
Right.
So for example, if someone came to me clinically with stomach aches and I didn't ask them if there was anything going on emotionally, that's not herbalism.
Okay, I see.
Right? I mean, we know that the enteric system lives in the gut.
Sure.
There is an undeniable relationship, right? So it's all about addressing a whole person.
Okay. Fascinating.
That's kind of the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So within those 3 years, you got an understanding of all of that. And were you putting it into practice at home?
Yes, in the States.
Yeah.
So the 3rd year of the program, we're still studying a whole lot, but we also begin the student clinic, which it operates under our mentors. So it's an ideal scenario because we're working with the public, but we have our mentors there, making sure that we don't make any mistakes, because obviously it's super critical that you're careful because you're dealing with people's health, which is the most important thing in the world.
Sure.
So that was an incredible launching point.
Yeah.
And then I was able to just take that and run with it.
Wonderful.
Still get an incredible amount of support from my herbal peers, which is great in a variety of ways. There's a small group of us. We call it the Herbal Roundtable. And it's this little support group. Anytime I'm working on a new case or just have a question or something comes up, I'm able to reach out. Someone pops on the phone with me.
How fabulous.
Yeah, big listservs. It's a really great community in general. I think generally speaking, the mentality of the average herbalist is that this is information to be shared.
Yeah.
And the more herbalists, the better.
Yeah.
And the more people who are engaged with plants, the better.
Yeah, brilliant.
Because it's all about healing, but the whole world healing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about gatekeeping information. That's not what we want.
No. Do you feel like it's at all incorporated into the general medical system in the States?
No.
No, they're completely separate entities.
Completely separate. Herbalism isn't even acknowledged in the United States as a legitimate profession or craft. And, you know, this is one of my passions when it comes to the educational component of my career is it's nothing short of outrageous, actually, that the realities of herbalism would be denied. Humans have been on this earth for 350,000 years, something like that. And from the very beginning, they've been learning. All of our ancestors were masters at plants, or we wouldn't be here, right?
Yeah.
So we have hundreds of thousands of years of traditional truths showing us how the plants work. I mean, I like to say, for example, the average person either knows personally or has seen the effects of cannabis. Right? There's no denying that plant works. Or you've seen a cat with catnip. No denying the way that plant works. Or we've gotten a burn and put aloe, right? So these aren't like the 3 plants in the world that have these incredible powers, right?
Some just get more press than others.
And some are more visible, perhaps. But so I think coming from that lens, it's important that we as a society begin to acknowledge that, of course, all of these plants have an incredible amount of power that is to be utilized respectfully, of course, by us, but to live in a way, in the current state, sadly, the vast majority of modern humans are living in a world where there is no reverence paid to the knowledge of our ancestors. And it's a huge disservice to us as individuals and to society as a whole. So my hope is that we can relearn. And it's kind of this rewilding that will set us on a hopefully more positive trajectory than the one we're on right now.
Well, it's very exciting, and I'm personally very glad that I can benefit from your knowledge.
Thank you.
So what prompted you to leave the States, and why Mallorca?
So that also brings me back to nature. Absolutely love New York. I lived in New York City for 23 years. It is part of the fiber of my being. Miss it so much in so many ways, mainly the cultural diversity. I also really miss hearing music blasting out of cars. A lot, just a lot. It's hard to explain. I think I'll miss that forever. You just don't hear it anywhere else.
I can do that for you. I can slap your house.
Thank you.
You might not approve of my tunes.
No Taylor Swift.
No.
But once again, it was kind of becoming a mother. And being in New York City, I felt that there was a lot of compromise. So I was either hugely compromising myself by sitting on the playground all day, wanting to tear my hair out, quite literally. And of course, here it's a little bit better because it's unusual to see a playground without a cafe nearby, or at least a decent bathroom. In New York City, you're like in jail. You know, there's, I mean, there might be a bathroom, but you'd have to have a major emergency if you want to be stepping in it, right? So you're just sitting there with your water bottle, freezing. There's nary even a bench to sit on. Kids are happy. Or I'm dragging them to museums. I'm happy. But they're kind of, you know, little kids, toddlers after 15 minutes. So it felt like someone was always compromising. I started to notice that every time we were in nature, we were all happy. And so I found that we were leaving the city every weekend, whether we're going to see friends in the mountains or going out to see my dad on the seaside or whatever it was we were doing, it was always in nature. Finally, it was like, we need to live in nature. So we started thinking about where to go. And honestly, it was a years-long process. And we just kept hitting roadblocks between the gun violence in the U.S. There's a lot of fear surrounding that. There was always a level of safety in the city, ironically. And cost prohibitions and political differences. It was like nothing was really clicking. And then one day I was chit-chatting on WhatsApp with my dear friend Kika. And she was like, how are you guys? And I was giving her this update. And she said, well, why don't you come move to Mallorca? Kika and Sabine, my friends, lived in New York for many, many years. And then in 2017, they decided it was time for them to leave New York, and they found a beautiful finca that they've restored. They're totally off-grid in Campanet, and they live here as leather workers. So that's what brought them to the island, is the leather work tradition. And she said, well, why don't you come to Mallorca? My friend is looking for renters for his amazing house. And she sent us photos of the house, and I was like, we're going. And we came here sight unseen, had never been to the island.
On vacation or no the move?
You
just did
here.
it. Brilliant.
I convinced the family. I was like, we'll just go for a year.
Try
for a year, you know, live life. Who cares? And then thankfully everyone fell in love with the island. So
yeah. Well, it's
oh,
hard.
hala, we're here to
Yes,
stay.
indeed. You have a beautiful finca, and it's in the valley. What's the name of the valley?
Vall de March is
de
the
March.
Catalan, or Valle de March.
Okay, so no more town, city dwelling for you.
Not for now.
So I had the pleasure of going on one of your plant walks recently with my husband and my 2 kids. And we were both curious beforehand to see whether the young ones, whether their attention would stay focused. But all of us absolutely loved it. Can you talk me through, remind me, because I did not remember any of the Latin names, but I have got such a clear idea now. And I have noticed a few plants that have rung a bell. So there was 2 families, and your good self and your lovely kids. And you just took us off one of the hiking paths and started pointing out, what was the first plant you pointed out?
Did we do wood sorrel first?
It was wood sorrel.
So the clover lookalike.
Yes, that's it.
That's in blossom right now, all over the island with the beautiful yellow flower.
Yes, gorgeous.
Plant walks. Well, I love all facets of being an herbalist, but it's probably my favorite.
You can tell.
Yeah.
You were really into it.
I am really
contagious.
into it. Yeah. And I think it is contagious. I can definitely see my husband, Mike, rolling his eyes sometimes on our hikes as I stop, in micro detail.
I like how he said she's like a deer.
It's true. Eating my way along the paths. But per your comment about engaging the kids, I'm really passionate about that, not only with my own kids, but with the kids in general.
Yeah.
Not only do I think it's critical in these very uncertain times that the children learn about our plant allies and how to use them, but also children aren't taught about the wealth of careers in the scope of herbalism. I mean, there's a huge demand for growers.
Right.
Who, it's difficult. I shouldn't say difficult. It takes an education and an insight to properly grow herbs.
Okay.
You see a lot of garbage herbs on the market.
Yeah.
You could be a grower, you can be a medicine maker, you can be a distributor, you can be an educator, you can be a clinical herbalist. There is a lot to be said for herbalism as a burgeoning career.
Yeah.
In addition to it being something that all of our kids should just know and love.
And they did.
And they do.
There was a range of ages, and they were all really just intrinsically interested in plants.
They are.
And what you can eat and what you can do with them.
I think that we are as humans. So, if we go way back, plants have been around for something like 500 million years, which is a number that is actually difficult for me to even kind of wrap my head around.
Yeah.
Humans, 350,000. Think of that difference.
Yeah.
So we have so much to learn from plants who have inhabited this earth for so much longer than us.
Yeah.
And I think that we all inherently know that and have a desire to connect via the plants. And I think that it's seen in its most pure form with the children.
Definitely.
So.
The colours, I think you started really articulately saying, now there are some rules, don't eat until I can say whether it's a yes or a no. And we don't take anything unless we can see that there's a lot of it, because we don't want to deplete it.
Absolutely.
And they stuck to those rules. And each of the different things that you took us around to had such a significantly different flavour, and flavours that you don't ordinarily eat.
It's true.
So this whole new palette.
It's so true.
Just wonderful.
And as I think I mentioned, sadly, our agricultural soils have been so depleted over the years from poor agricultural practices that so much of what we get at market is quite bland, really, isn't it?
You can certainly tell the difference between organic and not.
Yeah, and then take it to the next level, wild.
Yeah.
Something that has grown in truly organic conditions without the hand of man. Yeah. And you get these extreme sours, these bitters, these pungents. You can find mouth-numbing agents. I mean, you name it, it's out there in nature.
So we were eating everything. We were pulling them out, eating the root, eating the flowers, the leaves, And the range was just extraordinary.
It is. And
so
we didn't even cover every,
sure.
I think that I had just for this, so this is what I would call, what we did is what I would call a country lane walk.
Okay.
Because of course we have different ecosystems all over the island, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many different places we could go. I thought that this would be most suitable for that particular group because easy every day.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to go somewhere to see everything that we explored. But I think I had 14 plants on my list and we only got to 9.
Yes.
And those are just the edibles. I would like to make a note that just learning plants, whether they are medicinal and edible or not, is life-changing.
Yeah, I bet.
And, you know, I liken it to, well, so many of us have immigrated from non-Spanish speaking countries here to Mallorca. And so I like to ask people, you know, you remember when you didn't speak any Spanish at all and you could recognize someone speaking Spanish and say that person is speaking Spanish, but it was just a blur of noise.
Yeah.
And then as you begin to learn Spanish, then suddenly you begin to understand what's happening and the great opening that occurs at that moment, right?
Sure.
So learning the plants is a similar opening. Or as I said to the children, it's like when you go to a new school and you don't know anyone and it's just a sea of faces and then you get to know each person, first their name and then their personality, how that whole human opens up to you.
Yep.
Plants are very much like people. They are multifaceted. There is a ton to know about them. I might know something about rosemary. I might know 5 or 6 or 7 things about rosemary, and another person might have a different type of relationship with rosemary and know this whole other side of rosemary that I've yet to experience.
Sure.
So there is a real beauty and value in learning the plants that surround us, whether we're consuming them or not.
Yeah. 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 So some of the ones that we covered were nettles, which I was overly familiar with from my childhood in the country, and milk thistle. Then there was some oak. There was one that was it the fennel family?
Fennel.
Fennel. Okay.
Yep. Abundant on this island, and such a beautiful culinary herb and wonderful, wonderful gut herb.
Amazing. So we all left with our pockets, like the kids, just these little baby leeks almost.
The wild leeks.
Just gorgeous, which we cooked up a storm when we got home. So you're now offering these walks to individuals, to families?
You know, after kind of piloting my Mallorca versions of the walk, I think to begin I'm going to keep them small and kind of customized.
Okay.
First of all, we always have to be careful about not keeping a light footprint.
Yep, sure.
And we are guests on this island, and it's important for me to keep that in mind. So I think I'm going to start with smaller groups, and it might be adults who are interested in medicinals. It could be children who are interested in the edible foraging. I would absolutely love, and I'll see if there's interest in doing tree ID.
Yeah,
because I think let's start with the tree. I have a passion for trees, I think, as you can tell from my entire trajectory. But when you know your trees alone, I mean, that changes things.
Yeah.
These absolute titans of our earth, right? So I'm planning on offering small, customized, kind of 10 or less people.
Yeah, great.
Every couple of weeks through the spring.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Because then as of May, things start to go dormant?
October to May is kind of considered the eternal spring.
Right, okay.
But I think we all know by June, things start to get a little crunchy.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And then July and August, I'm on my island in Croatia.
Yes,
anyway.
fair enough.
Yeah.
And so we are in March now. Is this a really good time to be going and exploring and finding plants?
Wonderful time.
Okay, great.
Absolutely wonderful time to focus on all things spring. We were talking a little bit earlier, but...
time to cleanse the lymph and the liver, is that right?
Yes, perfect, good memory. You hear detox all the time. I shy away from that. What does that mean? There's a lot kind of bound up in detox culture that I don't agree with.
Sure.
I love the idea of a spring clean. The same way we clean out our houses.
Yeah.
Spring is the time traditionally to clean out our bodies.
Okay.
Winter is slow.
Yep.
And we tend to eat much richer foods, not to mention all the holidays. With sweets and alcohol and all of that. And it builds in the system. There's just a lot more darkness, a lot less movement.
Right.
So that takes a toll on the body, and that makes it a very good time to support the detoxification pathways, such as the lymph and the liver.
Right.
And interestingly enough, spring is when all of these lymph and liver plants start popping up from the earth saying, eat us.
It's as if it knows what we need.
It does know.
Yeah.
And we know too if we tap back in. So that's, such another important part of herbalism is it's about living within the rhythms of the earth.
Sure.
And also respecting our own rhythms.
Yeah.
And boundaries. We live in such a push culture to push through, and it's to the detriment of our health.
Yeah.
And in clinic I see it all the time.
Right.
People have burnt the candles on both ends and now are paying for it dearly.
Yeah.
And it's difficult. It's almost like actually kind of a radical move to say, you know what? No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to respect my inner rhythms.
Yes.
And respect the rhythms of the earth.
Yeah.
And it takes a certain amount of rebellion and certainly a great amount of effort to step outside of the norm and say, I'm not doing that.
Sure.
The sheer notion that we're expected to perform the same way in January as we do in July is nothing short of absurd, right?
Yes. Yeah, I remember a good piece of advice that someone said, a rose isn't in bloom all year round.
Right.
So
that's beautiful.
I really call on that. Sometimes I'll say to my kids, I am a rose.
Yeah, you are a rose.
I just need a little bit of quiet time.
And a rose has thorns, which represent boundaries.
Right. There you go. So other than the walks, you're doing one-on-one consultations.
Yes.
To look at that whole big picture.
Exactly.
Great.
So that's where, just to quickly run you through the way a consultation looks, is that someone comes to me with a health concern. Before we sit down, they fill out an intake form that will help guide our discussion. We give ourselves about 90 minutes, one-on-one. Of course, everything is totally confidential, where we go deep into a person's health history, their health objectives, and their daily rhythms. Again, the daily rhythms are so important because the herbs won't do you any good if they're sitting on the shelf, right? So I can load someone up with recommendations, but if it doesn't fit into the reality of their day-to-day, it's not going to serve. Ultimately, I walk away and I create a protocol for the client that includes herbs, of course, dietary recommendations, and self-care, which is something that is just gravely missing in our culture. And I guess why I mentioned how fortunate I feel that my parents modeled self-care from a young age, because I took it for granted. And it was only as an adult that I realized, oh my God, people aren't taking a minute.
Absolutely.
And then we meet again in 6 to 8 weeks to see what's working, what's not working, what's changed, and make tweaks.
Great.
And then, you can work with a client for years or just a period of months. Ideally, we're not relying on herbs for the rest of our life.
Right.
I mean, I consume herbs every day, but sometimes it might be for the joy of a rosemint and cardamom tea. And other times it's because I'm feeling fried and I need the calm, steady focus from an ashwagandha tablet, right?
Sure.
But ideally, we're not saying, okay, Lucy, I'm prescribing you these herbs and you'll be on it forevermore. That's not the idea. It's all to bring us back into balance.
Okay. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And you're doing these one-on-ones at your home?
I do them at my home, at a studio space, is that the right word? At Comunidad Inspira, outside of Pollensa, and of course, online.
Great.
So I can reach anyone, anywhere. The only thing I can't do online is pulse. We have a traditional pulse reading where we listen to the blood. It's kind of like the art of listening to music.
Wow.
And that is the one downside of Zoom. The upside is that I can reach people who aren't able to get to me.
Sure. Brilliant. One of the advantages of having it at your beautiful home is I've had the joy of drinking your teas just from various different herbs that you have picked, like a deer, along your walk, near your home, that we can all do. For those of us that live in the Pueblo, is there somewhere that you recommend to buy your herbs?
So my favorite herbal suppliers as of now, I wish I had gotten their names. I will absolutely go get their names on Sunday. Is this wonderful Mallorquin couple who have a stand at the Pollensa market on Sundays.
Yeah, great.
They're right in front of the pharmacy.
Yep.
And in the Puerto Pollensa market on Wednesday mornings, they're the only people there with dried bulk herbs.
Okay.
So you can't confuse them for anyone else.
They also sell nuts, is that them?
Yes, and their nuts are...
Nuts are so good.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Incredible.
And you were saying to me how you first noticed them because of the vibrancy, the colours, you just knew.
Unreal.
Right.
I mean, their chamomile...
Right.
I mean, you're hard pressed. You could spend a lot of money at a top herb shop in metropolitan centers and you're not getting that quality.
Sure.
I have been so impressed. But when herb shopping, always look for vibrancy.
Okay.
Number one. And also, you know how you can kind of just tell if something looks dried out and old?
Yeah.
Plant matter?
Yeah.
Don't bother.
No, I'm sure.
So then there's another, do you know Navarro?
Yeah.
There are two down in Palma.
Yeah.
I think they're all over the country. It's hit or miss there.
Right.
As far as their dried herb, you definitely have to use your organoleptics, mainly your eyes and your sense of smell to test the quality. So I've had hits or misses. You can look there. But they have some great encapsulated herbs and herbal powders.
Right.
And other options there aside from the teas or the dried matter to get your medicine.
But ideally, we're coming to see you first to work out which ones will help us.
Yes, ideally, you know, I encourage everyone to play with herbs, but if you have a health concern, you know, you could kind of spend years throwing spaghetti at the wall hoping to figure it out yourself, or you could have the shortcut of meeting with a professional to zoom in and figure out what's going on.
Well, I'm so enthused. And when I went to your wonderful workshop at Comunidad Inspira, and you poured us, it was about 8 different teas.
We covered about 8,
This range of flavors.
Yeah.
I mean, like we said before, just on the walk, we were all, there was nothing mild. They were all so distinct and we all resonated with different ones, presumably because not just a taste thing, but perhaps our bodies know what we need.
Absolutely.
It was such a great education. Can't wait for more of those.
That's great. And yeah, you know, tuning into flavor is really fun.
Yeah, it is.
And exciting. And, you know, you can kind of start to understand, like, oh, when something's bland or sweet, these tend to be the kind of the nourishing. Think of meats, grains, right? This falls into the bland, sweet category. Right. Kind of the foundation of our diets. Bitters, feel how moving they are, right? Incredible for stimulating the detoxification pathways, right? You have the sour, which is anything that makes it's astringing, tightening, you know, anything that's boggy, you want to tighten that up with the sours. Pungent, you know, you have cold hands and feet, you take an herb that kind of shock you, it's shooting the blood and causing lots of movement. So we can begin to inform our own decisions and the decisions we make for our families based on balancing our flavors on our plate.
Yeah, great. Amazing. Even just the little thing like I never bother with black pepper, but you said that it's traditionally put on the table because it aids digestion?
It aids absorption.
Absorption,
yes.
Right.
So it's really critical. So if you like black pepper, load it on.
Okay, so clever.
Yeah, it increases the bioavailability of all of our nutrients and minerals.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool.
Incredible. It's such a fascinating topic, and
I'm glad
so
you
good.
agree.
I really do. I see why you studied it. I think it's brilliant that you've also put it on the plate for our children that it's a possibility to get back to the basics. And what a wonderful thing to learn. And thank you so much for talking to us. It's just a brilliant way to start our new podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with a magazine that celebrates this incredibly, truly special island.
Yes.
And I'm honored to be a guest here on this island.
Thank you. And thank you for explaining us what grows here and how it can help us and how we can work respectfully with this island, as you say.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Maeve.
Thank you, Lucy.